Morning, everybody, and welcome to a business spotlight interview with a bit of a difference, actually. It's really interesting here. We've got Neil from Creative Roots. Neil, tell us all about your business.
Hi. Creative Roots essentially is a garden landscaping company. Our strapline is design, build, maintain, because our business is made up of three individual sort of sections, as it were. We have design, first of all, which is very much at the forefront of what we do. We're very much design led, and garden design is something that brings a lot of work to us. As well as designing gardens, we also build these gardens. A lot of the gardens we design, we build, not all of them, but we do the majority. And we also landscape other gardens that designers have also designed, as well as simple landscaping projects, say, for instance, a fence or patio that doesn't really require much design work. Um, Finally, we offer a maintenance service, garden maintenance, everything from hedge cutting to lawn mowing, but also our gardeners are very much skilled gardeners, and they are able to do everything from pruning wisterias, for instance, to dividing perennials. And our focus, our sort of USP, is really pushing gardens on, not just maintaining them, but developing them and sort of ensuring that they look better every year.
That's really interesting. So, in effect, what you're actually doing for your customers is to actually design a garden and then bring it to life as it goes through its cycles.
Yeah, indeed. And actually, gardens are quite unique when you're selling a product, I guess, because although they look great on paper, they aren't really worth anything until they get built. But once they're built, once the hard landscaping goes in and the plants go in, that's really just the beginning as well. Um, some of the best gardens you ever see are at least sort of 10 years old, because uh, when we plant the plants, they aren't really going to look how they should look for at least 3 or 4 years, and even then they're going to look better and better every year for a good number of years. And that's really where good maintenance is make or break for a lot of gardens.
Yeah, to actually bring out and enhance not only the beauty of the garden, but also to enhance the value of the property as well, isn't it? I mean, it's sort of.
And yeah, absolutely.
And you mentioned now you're branching out into commercial maintenance.
Yeah, it's something that's a little bit of a natural evolution. A lot of our customers, as you can imagine, have their own businesses or are involved in the management of businesses, and so we started. Some of our customers have asked us to maintain some of their commercial spaces. It's not something that we really intended to go into, but because there's obviously a need there, we started looking at that. And what we found was that, unfortunately, the industry isn't particularly well serviced. A lot of the companies out there are all about the bottom line, and don't get me wrong, I appreciate, as your listeners will no doubt know, the bottom line is what's really key. But we really focus on service and ensure that the result is that little bit better. And we found that the response to that's been really positive. And so that's another sort of area that we're really pushing into now.
Yeah, and it's also, I mean, you see on the news, etc., that these gardens, etc., around commercial properties are really valuable for the workforce because it's mental health and things like that.
Yeah, no, indeed. And unfortunately, a lot of these spaces get neglected very early on. We've been able to get involved in the designing of planting schemes, for instance, for some quite big blue chip companies where they've obviously had planning conditions and a requirement to put planting and landscaping in around their spaces. And again, when we some of them we've even sort of been involved in the planting, but unfortunately a lot of them get neglected very early on, and then they tend to go a little bit downhill. And so I think the general expectation is not that high, especially in this country. In other countries it's very different, but in this country it's not that high. Whereas and I think what's happening now is, especially since COVID, more than anything, people have really sort of seen the value of outdoor space,
Mm.
how that, like you say, can improve the well-being and what have you of their staff, but also bring customers to them as well. That saying, "your shop front," is so important. That curb appeal, and that's really where yeah, where we can help sort of drive your business forward.
Brilliant. Now, when was the business set up?
2010.
2010. I think it was set up by your dad.
No, yeah, well, myself and my dad.
Oh, no,
So
both your
I
dads. So
approached my
you've been going 15 years together.
yeah, well, no, unfortunately, my dad retired a number of years ago. He gave us 5 good years, 5 of the hardest years, I think, to be fair to him as well. So I approached my dad back in 2009 and explained that I was looking to make a bit of a career change. I'd sort of been planning it for probably a year prior to that, but told him a little bit that I wanted to set up a landscaping business. And by this point, he was in his sort of mid to late 50s. And he said, "Oh, yeah, yeah, come on, yeah, maybe if you want me to come and help or give you some advice or what have you, I'll come on board." So I jumped at that and said, "Right, okay, well, you can run the first landscaping team." So got him on board. He has since told me that he expected us to be quite quiet to start with. And this was his sort of semi-retirement plan where he might do a few days a week. Needless to say, 3 years in, working 5-6 days a week, sort of 8 till 6, he said to me, "Look, I'll be honest, I'm probably not going to want to do this for that much longer." And a couple of years later, he did indeed retire, although he was very much instrumental in the growth and the initial growth. We started to grow quite quickly after a couple of years. And certainly the expansion of the business, and was involved in that. But yeah, he's been sort of involved from a distance for a number of years as well. But yeah, very much enjoying retirement now.
Oh, fantastic. Lovely story. Thanks for sharing that, Neil. So, I mean, been going quite some time. With the benefit of hindsight, knowing what do you do now, what you do now, would you do anything differently?
That's a good question. So I don't know. I think from a business perspective, you can always, in hindsight, look at things and go, "Oh, well, if I'd sort of gone in this direction, then maybe that would have happened a bit quicker or what have you." But I don't think I'd do anything dramatically different with the business. Um, when we so another little story, when we set up the business, first day at work, I'd sort of spent 6 months planning the business and developing sort of how we were going to work, setting up the website, all that. But the first day on site, where we started our very first garden, I arrived site sort of really eager. I was only I think I was 29, just turning 30, so very, very eager. 7:30 in the morning, and I was just sat outside the client's property, and I got a phone call from my wife. My dad hadn't turned up at that point, but I got a phone call from my wife, and I sort of thought, "Oh, this is great," wishing me good luck on the first day on the tools, as it were. And she said, "Neil," she said, I wanted to talk to you in person, but I just haven't had time, and I've got to tell you," she said, "I'm pregnant." So I guess back then, I was quite sort of relaxed about the concept of having my own business and putting all my eggs into that. Still quite young, if you make a mistake, you can start again. That changed that attitude quite quickly, and certainly the pressure was on. And that pressure I felt for quite a long time, and I guess that's probably the same for most people who run a business. There is that pressure and responsibility that comes with running a business. I guess if I was going to change anything, I think I would perhaps recognise the need for more time for my family and a bit of a better life-work balance in those first 5 years. It's a difficult one, because would we get to where we were if I had focused more on family? I don't know. I'm still married, still my children are fine, there or thereabouts, and so it wasn't a problem. But I guess that's a real challenge for anyone starting a business, and I guess that's circumstances of starting a family and a business at the same time, which probably isn't recommended.
Oh, lovely story. Great share. So thanks again, Neil. So what do you see as the main challenges going forwards?
Certainly for Creative Roots, and I think for a lot of service industries, it's going to be staffing. Staffing in terms of recruitment and getting the right staff, but also staffing costs. We've certainly for coming out of COVID, one of the big challenges for us was there was a real focus on work-life balance. We had a number of staff leave because they wanted something else. You know, they probably didn't actually know what it was, but they wanted to leave, and so we had quite a lot of recruitment issues coming out of that sort of 21, 22, even into 2023. I think the levels of low unemployment, great thing, but actually the availability of jobs meant that some of our lower skilled staff were very quick to jump ship and go to another job, you know, just by being offered a little bit more money. And we've worked really hard with staff retention. We do lots of socials, you know, we have a real team environment, quite a nurturing environment as well for some of the younger guys especially. And we pay our staff as well as we possibly can. Fast forward to the last couple of years and inflation rising, you know, the challenges of cost of living, really, that everyone talks about, that's become more and more a pressure, because people don't necessarily want to spend as much, or they certainly aren't going to be keen on prices rising. And at the other end of the spectrum, we've got staff who want to be paid more, who feel they deserve to be paid more, and so some of them do, you know. But it's very hard when we're being squeezed, being so careful on what we charge, and then also having to be squeezed at the other end with how much we pay staff. I think there's also an element where there's a lot less work around in the last couple of years. Coming out of COVID, we were flooded with work. We couldn't keep up. In the last year or so, it's been an awful lot quieter, and so that's led to other companies and competitors of ours potentially reducing their costs or being more competitive because they're forced to in order to keep their businesses running, sometimes even working at a loss, especially on the maintenance side of the business, where we've had a lot of people who have started their own maintenance side, sort of,
Yeah.
you know, simplistic maintenance businesses, maybe just a few tools in the back of the car. And in order to compete with them and all of that, that's sort of a real melting pot of challenges for us as a business.
No, it's sort of completely understandable. We're talking beforehand, you just mentioned that you've got a relatively young family. It's not young anymore, you're young. But how do you balance your personal life with the demands of running a business?
Um, how do I balance that? I think through planning, which sounds a little bit dull, but yeah, planning is really important. So I plan time out for family. I get up very early now as well, so I can have a bit of space, so I can go to the gym, or I train in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well, so I go to early morning classes that start at 6 in the morning. I I always make sure I take my two daughters. They go to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on a Tuesday and Thursday. So routine is really crucial. So I have three diaries in my computer. I have one for work, one for just children, and one for family, and they all have to fit in, as it were, to balance right. And sometimes that's a real challenge, and other times it works really well.
Fantastic. Well, that's a great learning for everybody, actually. That is discipline, isn't it? You have the discipline to actually do it
Yeah.
and have that, and it all gets brought together under one. So that is a really good learning for everybody. Final question. What is the best advice you give to an 18-year-old you?
Uh, Good question. Good question. I think 18 is so young, isn't it? So I didn't start my business till I was 29. Gosh, what was it? When I was 18? I guess travel. I think traveling is a really good thing to do. I think experience is something that you can take with you into work and into running a business. And I think also it just gives you a better outlook on life. Um, I think from a work perspective, I think the one thing I would tell myself is don't assume that, especially working for somebody else, that by working really, really hard, that's necessarily going to be rewarded. Unfortunately, I think I'm very aware of this when it comes to my staff and people who work particularly hard. but often working for other people, there's going to be a ceiling, and you've got to recognise that ceiling early and work out where you want to get to and whether or not that ceiling is going to be where you want to be, and if not, plan accordingly. Really, that's one of the great things about being a business owner, and I guess most of us are optimists. You have to be. Is there is less of a ceiling, for sure. There's also less of a floor, but I think that's the only thing I can think of, really.
Well, it's brilliant. What a wonderful way to end the interview. Neil, thanks so much for your time.
Okay, no problem. Good to see you.